Megaherzzz. You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ.
You're on Megaherzzz 102.1 FM. I am going to be probably one in a very long line of young presenters to be chatting about some of the things that I saw at BigSound on the weekend, because you know what? I know it's a very corporate event, but people under 25, they made the tickets only $25, which was a very smart move because they got all of the young 4ZZZ presenters in there with that cheap price, and we all saw so many wonderful acts. We all saw each other. It was lovely. It was so much fun. I saw tomorrow's forecast at Mate Sound, which was just before the BigSound commenced, and that was on Monday night at Felons, and tomorrow's forecast killed it. They did so well. It was so nice to see them up on that massive stage at Felons. And a couple of nights later, I had the honour of seeing Badass Mother at the Google stage event area, which I just looked it up, and Google translates in Yagara language to Big Sound, which is interesting. And Badass Mother was just incredible. They did this long, wonderful cover, but I've forgotten what they covered right now. But anyway, they were so good. They were all dressed up as grannies, which was really funny, and they did a really good job. It was just so wonderful. And honestly, in my review of Big Sound, the most incredible artists that I got to see over the 3 days of that was pretty much exclusively at that Google event area. It was so incredible. I'm actually blown away by the people that I got to see. Before we get on with the show, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast and you listen, the Turrbal and Yagara people, and the people on the land in which you are at the moment. I would like to acknowledge that music has been played and stories been told through song on this land for tens of thousands of years, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the incredible First Nations artists that play on this station and keep this station afloat. We stand in solidarity in the fight for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Zed Lovers brings together four much-loved Brisbane Meanjin bands: Sarah Stockholm, Isis, We All Want To, and guitar pop legends Dream Poppies performing their album Poppycock in full. Celebrate 4ZZZ's 50th anniversary with these four seminal acts performing Friday 19th and Saturday 20th of September at the Cave-In, 47 Balaclava Street, Woolloongabba. Tickets are moving fast. Grab yours now from Oztix. Zed Lovers is a proud sponsor of 4ZZZ.
I heard from my auntie yesterday, Father's Day. Oh, maybe I should talk a bit about Father's Day. But I heard from my auntie that Lady Hawk is playing at the casino this weekend, which is insane. What the hell? But I will look more into the details of that, because what? How haven't we heard more about this? And Barker played at the Google stage on Tuesday night, which was mind-blowing to me, in front of a relatively intimate crowd, which was just the most incredible thing ever. And she is the fiercest, most incredible woman, and so strong and articulate. She's so amazing, and there's no wonder we play her every single week here on the show. I think we need to make it kind of like a Goo installment, where at the start of every Megaherzzz we play a Barker song, because we kind of are doing that anyway already. But before we go on with more music, we have made a commitment here at Megaherzzz to report on the documentation of femicide in Australia. I would like to give a big content warning for this week. Tune out for the next 2 or so minutes, 3 minutes, be safe. If you need to, it's very intense information. It's the worst thing ever. But yes, we use Sherele Moody as our source. She is doing incredible work documenting this. She's completely independent. If you have the funds or the resources or just a like or follow to give her, please go and do so at Sherele Moody's Femicide Watch and the Red Heart campaign. But 2 women have been stabbed in the last week, one woman in Coomera and one in Wyndham Vale, Victoria. Both of these women are in critical condition. They're very horrific instances of violence against women, and there's further information on there, but I don't think that it's... I've made the call today to not recount the details of these horrific instances because, this is one small and horrific thing that's happened in these women's lives, and I don't think that it's helpful to recount the horrific, traumatic things that have happened to them. Both of these women are in critical condition, both separate instances in different parts of the country. But I think that probably a more helpful use is to think of these women in your day-to-day. Send them some kind of healing energy because, one of these women was doing her job. She was an Uber driver. Well, she is an Uber driver. I'm sorry, they're in critical condition. She is an Uber driver. She was just doing her job. It's the most horrific thing that people use to randomly use violence, and it happens so often in this country. And it's so horrific. But yeah, I think that we should all spend a moment of our day thinking of these women. I also think that an important use of this time is letting you know that if you're in a serious situation, there is always help available. DV Connect line is 1-800-RESPECT, 1-800-737-732. That's DV Connect, 1-800-737-732. And if you're a man who is at risk or has a history of using violence, please get help. Call 1-300-789-978. Yeah, I'm sorry this is very horrific to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. It needs to be, that's the only way that we can go forward and hopefully change this culture of aggression and violence.
Are you renting your home and affected by domestic abuse? When you are affected by domestic abuse, you have rights to leave or to stay in the rental property. You are not responsible for damage caused by violence that you have experienced. Call 1300-744-263 for confidential renting advice. Tenants Queensland, 1300-744-263. Proud sponsor of 4ZZZ.
Hey, this is Charlie.
And this is Miri.
And we are Charlie Needs Braces.
And you are listening to 4ZZZ. Yay, we love Charlie Needs Braces, and you are on Megaherzzz. Charlie Needs Braces was one of Denise's favourite bands. Shout out to Denise and shout out to them. They are so marvellous. Also one of the wonderful bands that was at the Goo Goo stage and also here at Sounds Like Community Radio. They were so much fun and dressed up so incredibly. Both looked like disco balls and were doing like live loops with a trombone. Oh no, I'll need to look up what that instrument is. But on stage doing live loops and talking about the river from their country and how incredible and the stories they have about that river and about the beautiful fish and clams and everything that's in the water there. And it was just so wonderful. They're incredible storytellers. We got a text in from Terry who says, Big Sound sounds cute, but the Z car park with square tugs on Saturday was the bomb. Cheers, Terry. Thanks for reaching out. And oh my gosh, I didn't get to make it, but Dirty Linen as well on that lineup. That sounded awesome with square tugs. And I think that Jodie Flange as well. Correct me. I think there's one more band in there that I missed. Let me know how that was. But yeah, I wanted to have a quick talk about, I had a bit of a rant last week about how pissed off I was about these neo-Nazis walking our street, and after that, there was a hate crime committed against Camp Sovereignty, a very aggressive and vile act of violence that led to, a lot of, luckily some arrests, but also a horrible thing for people to go in action after doing a horrible march. Anyway, sorry, that was terribly articulated. But the point was that NAM rallied behind Camp Sovereignty and had a snap action gig, which was, all about support and standing up for the community, and that had Miss Kanina, the Terrys, a bunch of other acts, and it's just really beautiful to see counter-protest and people standing up and fighting against this hate that is seeping into our country, and seeing that there's these beautiful people who are willing to get up and perform and stand up for what they believe in very Miss Kanina style. She's incredible. But yeah, that was beautiful. And I wanted to use this platform to talk about Sovereignty Never Ceded March that's happening next week, this weekend, 12 p.m, 13th of September, King George Square, back to Musgrave Park. Racism and fascism is not welcomed in this rally and march, and it is a national day of action against these racists, but also just for community. Music in the park, many flags, one mob, reggae against racism is what it says on that flyer, which is lovely. I also wanted to talk about in the wake of this violence that's been happening, if you don't already follow Ette Media, they are this fantastic duo of prior journalists. They've gone independent now, but they had this really fantastic analysis, which is definitely not in isolation, but the West Australian newspaper and the way they have represented the March for Palestine, the National Day of Action for Palestine, and these neo-Nazis marching the streets. And I thought it was important to read it out because in Melbourne, the March for Australia was led by neo-Nazis, and there was blood, violence and clashes with cops and counter-protesters. It was reported by the West Australian newspaper, as a nation divided. And in comparison, a historic, entirely peaceful protest over the Sydney Harbour Bridge a month earlier earned the headline "Bloody Chaos" because a woman was carrying a doll with painted blood on it to bring attention to the mass murder of Palestinian children. So just, that's a very specific case, and I know that Z listeners are probably well aware of this, and it's nothing that interesting. Well, no, it's interesting, but nothing that much of a revelation. But just ensure that if you're not only consuming community-run and community-led media, that you're watching how the media is biased in your everyday life. And come along to Sovereignty Never Ceded Day from King George Square to Musgrave Park on the 13th of September. And, this probably won't get very advertised in the mainstream media, so share it around your communities. It's important that we show up and there show that these racists are just a tiny little, group of people with no power. And let's do it. Let's make sure that love prevails. We got a text in during that bracket from Mr. Stalin, who said, I was listening to a podcast from The Guardian the other day, so pretty reputable, and they had a neo-Nazi expert on it. She said that in a couple of months there'd be a white Australia party being registered for the next federal election. Well, I think that there's already some of these parties out there that have those views anyway, so let's hope that they continue to look stupid on the on the national scale, and that we continue to fight against them, because they're horrific and their opinions are just can't even comprehend how hateful these people are. Anyway, Sovereignty Never Ceded March, on the 13th of September, 12 p.m. at King George Square. Go along. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ. Don't forget to go on 13th of September. Thank you so much.
Isn't that what feminism is about?